can become death, the destroyer of worlds.
In this episode, I'm suggesting that in George Miller's film Mad Max from 1979, it's the lead character Max Rockatansky who first killed the world. But Max commits this crime inside his head, in fantasy, in order for him to separate himself from his mother figure.
I thought I should call it, I was going to call it the inside of his head. The original set, as I saw it, would be a gigantic interior of a skull.
Playwright Arthur Miller said of his play Death of a Salesman, on one level there are a number of autonomous characters. Others exist as symbols of the main character, merely different aspects of his own mind. I'd like to suggest that George Miller does the same thing with his film Mad Max, and that the whole film takes place inside the head of the lead character Max Rockatansky.
Here I am, trying to put sense to it, when I know there isn't any. I'll be all right once I get it clear of my head.
The hallucinogenic beginning of the second film, Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior from 1982, lends some credence to this idea that the film is taking place inside Max's head as he dreams, remembers or fantasises about the events that we saw in the first film. As psychoanalyst D.W. Winnicott has written, in the growth of the individual, the child must, in his own mind, destroy the mother in fantasy. Failure to separate from the mother is likely to leave the infant, the child, and finally the man in a state of neurotic attachment to the mother, as something like a man-child.
Jessie, if you meet Benno down there, don't let him trouble you. He's only a baby.
A man-child, the mind of an infant in the body of a man. This neurosis can lead to a fear, a contempt, and even a hatred of all things feminine.
So reality is a game of children. She's mad.
At its worst, this hatred of the feminine can lead to a cult of violence and death directed towards the breast, women, and the world in general.
Problem here. She is not what she seems. She's sent by the Bronze, full of treachery. The Bronze take our pride.
At the earliest stage of infant development, the child has no experience of its body as being separate. It feels itself and the mother, particularly her breast, to be one and the same body. It's only with the destruction in fantasy of the mother, who represents the whole world of the infant up till that time, that the infant can become free and recognise itself as an independent being. What psychoanalyst Margaret Mahler calls the psychological birth of the infant. But later, following this apparent destruction of the mother, the infant comes to understand that in fact it hasn't destroyed the mother in reality at all. She has only been destroyed in fantasy and now appears in a different light. After a time, the infant sees and realises that the mother still exists. However, what follows that initial immediate death of the mother is the dreadful recognition that the bond with her is now gone forever. According to Melanie Klein, what follows this loss of union with the mother is intense mourning and depression. Let's look for a moment at Orson Welles' famous Citizen Kane, for many years topping the list of the best 100 films of all time. Welles provides us with another example of union, or separation, from the mother.
Come on, boys! Reunion!
Consider young Charlie here, making an angry plea to stay with his mother when she is trying to separate and ship him off to the city. Notice too the anger directed towards his mother with a ball of snow thrown at her house. Recalled later in the snow globe that might be seen along with the nurse in white to symbolise the mother's breast and the little boy's childhood, as do the old man's dying word. Perhaps the most enigmatic single word in cinema history. According to writer Gore Vidal, the director of Citizen Kane, Orson Welles playfully claimed that the word rosebud was a reference to the female genital. Elsewhere, we can see a rosebud as a reference to the female breast. And returning to the nurse in the small snow globe in Citizen Kane, we might see her as a mother figure, as does this advertisement for an air hostess, also looking rather like a nurse. British psychoanalyst D.W. Winnicott gives two examples of young children with psychological problems. For these children, string or rope simultaneously represented the children's separation from their mother, as well as being a wish for their continued union with her. The infant began playing with a bundle of string and was making a gesture as if he was plugged in with the end of the string to his mother's thigh. Winnicott suggested that when a child is mentally in the process of separating from the mother, it may adopt what the psychoanalyst calls a transitional object. This object represents two now separate things, both the baby and the mother, but it also represents two opposing concepts of being attached to the mother as well as being separate from her. We could say that this is the significance of the snow sled from Citizen Kane. And perhaps too, the child's pusher in Mad Max. The broken symbolic connection is seen here in Kundalini's hand, and again here in the rope on the hand in the wreck, wrapped in fur like the body of the girl in the red car. When Max examines the tanker, arguably another symbol of the devastated body of the mother, somewhat suggested by the writing on the door saying, not Mother Earth, as the sand at the end of the film illustrates, but simply Earth. Max is quickly presented with something that reminds us of another musical instrument from the first film, Jessie's saxophone. But this time it's a symbol, a transitional object that, in addition to reminding him of his mother figure Jessie, it also signifies his psychological birth as his new incarnation, Max, the road warrior. Curiously, we also see that old May at the farm wears braces on both her legs, perhaps because she is unable to separate from her own son. We know that the brace on Max's leg, seen in the second film, relates to him being shot in the first film, but it is possible to read the brace as evidence of the separation Max has made from his mother figure, Jessie, and it reminds us that this is the option Max gave to Johnny the boy at the end of the first film. Melanie Klein describes the infant's relationship with the mother as a very complicated one, with deeply conflicting and opposing drives. Primarily motivated in the first instance by the desire to remain in blissful union with the mother, at other times the infant fights fiercely to break away from her. However, this too can be compounded in the future by a later desire to return to the womb, a blissful, drug-like utopian world of comfort and support, and stay there, just like Max at the crack in the earth.
I'm the guy that keeps Mr. Dead in his pocket. And I say we're gonna stay here.
But it may also be expressed as an aggressive attack on the mother, her breast and even the insides of her body. Perhaps simultaneously, the infant may fear this unconscious drive to once again return to and be engulfed by the mother. And the infant experiences this possibility as a potential attack from the mother herself.
This Mad Max thing is like, it's almost like the Oedipal thing. It's like a complex. It's like a constellation in everybody's psychology. It's an allegory. But not just an allegory of the world, political and social, but also an allegory of the world that is very psychological and deep within it.
The following scene from the first Mad Max film seems to encapsulate these simultaneous, conflicting desires. Johnny the boy is seen among the remains of the devastated body of the red vehicle, the crotch of a pair of cut-off jeans in his mouth. A long length of rope is attached from his leg to the violated body of the young girl. Let me take this opportunity to repeat a claim I make in another essay, that the red car itself can be seen as a symbol of the mother.
Well, you all may think my story is more fiction than it's fact, but believe it or not, my mother did decided she'd come back as a car.
The attack on the car can be read as a wish to kill or separate from the mother, as well as a desire to investigate the insides of her body and become part of her. But after the bikies kill or perhaps rape the car, as they appear to have raped the girl and even the young man, Johnny still remains attached to the vehicle and in fact to the young girl. She is a youthful representation of the mother figure, now wrapped in fur, who we saw earlier in the car with her presumably post-coital boyfriend, who looked rather like a baby fallen asleep at the mother's breast. The repetitious theme of rope and attachment to the mother and symbols of her body occur again and again throughout the film series. It's here in the tanker, and it's a significant feature attaching Auntie's dairy at Bartertown as it stretches down to the giant womb-like cage that is Thunderdome. Then Savannah Nix, the young mother figure for the children of the lost tribe, drags the near-dead body of Max through the desert to be baptised in the life-giving waters at the crack in the earth, itself a reference to the female genital. Later we see the stunted body of Master, now separated from Blaster, lowered by rope into the bowels of the earth at Bartertown. And in Fury Road, Max hangs by rope in a miniaturised cage version of Thunderdome. Then, finally, Furiosa brings the group back to the green place where she was born, but it's a world which no longer exists.
It's almost like a repetition compulsion for Max, who's repeating and repeating everything he's ever done. All goes back to the death of his wife and child, and here we are again with...
These competing desires and repeated mental journeys from the mother may be psychologically deeply disturbing.
Hey, mister, what happened to the car?
What do you think of it?
Looked like it was chewed up and spat out.
Perhaps it's a result of an anxiety.
The theme of mental frailty and instability is a recurring one throughout the films.
What did you say? What are you
and
doing?
At the end of Mad Max, Johnny declares his own problems.
I'm not a bad man. I'm sick, see? Like I'm psychopathic, you know, I have a personality disorder.
But what is meant by these images of men who are like babies or children? And what is the cause of Johnny's and Max's mental confusion? According to psychoanalyst Klein, children who are unable to accept the psychic separation from the mother to achieve their own mature independence may experience a sense of trauma.
What are you doing?
But Max offers him a solution. Johnny must cut himself free from his maternal attachment, symbolised again by a car, and learn to stand on his own 2 feet, even if he has to wear a brace to do it.
The chain in those handcuffs is high tensile steel. It'll take you 10 minutes to hack through it with this. Now, if you're lucky, you can hack through your ankle in 5 minutes. Go.
You're mad, man. You think I look silly, don't you? Don't bring this on me, man. Don't do this to me.
Klein suggests that this trauma can induce a split in the mental well-being of a character. The subject of multiple personalities has frequently made an appearance in film and television, from Jekyll and Hyde to The United States of Tara and Raising Cain, among others.
I won't hurt her. She'll hurt you.
I don't even exist.
The splits in Max's character are many. Johnny the boy is arguably the closest character to Max himself, and, in passing, so too is the war boy in the fourth film. So it is possible to read the Mad Max series of films as repetitiously playing out the psychological development of an infant and its breakaway from the maternal connection. Psychologically, the infant may experience this separation as an act of rejection and even aggression by the mother. Similarly, the infant can experience its own feelings of anger and violence, even murder, directed towards the mother and to other women. When this neurotic infantile fixation is unresolved in fantasy, it can be expressed in reality in the real world. Seen at a personal level, these feelings may be expressed as domestic violence and, at its worst, may infect the mind of a serial killer, explored elsewhere in this series. In order to make this transition away from the mother, the child frequently needs the assistance of another person. Generally a male for the young boy who can model a healthy form of independent, respectful, caring or loving masculinity. And Max himself serves as a model for the feral kid who later becomes the leader of the tribe in the north. But in the first film, Max has no such male role models.
So long as the paperwork's clean, you boys can do what you like after.
Fifi turns out to be just another version of the toe cutter, sharing the same bald head as the humongous, who, locked in his embrace with Wes, bears a remarkable similarity with Master Blast. All of them embodied in the character of Immortan Joe. This lack of a mature masculinity has implications for the real world and the way society as a whole is structured.
Rev it up for the Immortan Joe!
Consider the world of Immortan Joe, epitomised by his imprisoning control of women, water, milk and blood, and the dictatorship he inflicts on the community at large. Immortan Joe is the leader of a psychotic masculinity, a death cult of war boys with a murderous and fascist state of mind. But that's another essay.